Hey, what in hell is happening? Hey, what the hell? It's Nick Digilio. Thanks for checking out my videos. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You get daily videos, almost daily videos. I take the couple of days off during the weekend. But the videos include movie reviews and stories and talks and all kinds of fun stuff. And thank you for checking out my YouTube videos. Help me out on Patreon. Become a patron on my Patreon page. Patreon's a great place for artists and musicians and people to supply with art and do their content and get help from folks like you to keep it going. And I do videos exclusively for the Patreon page, and you can help out. And if you do, you get a bonus. You get some bonus materials. You can check out a tier and donate $3, $9, $25 a month, and with that you get some bonus materials as we go down the line. We'll do some live streaming, some other stuff like that. But you also get the behind-the-scenes true story of what actually went down at WGN. Not the nonsense, not the bullshit, not the rumors or the crap that was said about me or has been said about me and still said about me on social media. You'll get the truth, but you got to be a patron to do it. So donate. Thank you for that. Check it out at patreon.com/NickD Show. My podcast, the Nick D Podcast, on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network, launches tomorrow, Tuesday, January 18th. Rich Coe's Fenguli is my guest. Subscribe. He's my first guest. Very excited about that. And all of my podcast is separate from these videos and the Patreon stuff. And you can subscribe to the podcast all over the place. But it would be awesome if you went to Patreon for these videos that are exclusive to that and check it out. Okay, so on these videos I like to tell stories and reminisce and review movies and talk about the arts. I spent a great deal of time doing live theater here in Chicago. I wrote a bunch of plays, I directed a bunch of plays, and I was in a bunch of plays. The majority of which was with the Factory Theater here in Chicago. Great theater company, still around, and I started with them in the early 90s and continued all the way up through the mid-2000s. And I served as artistic director there, and I was in a bunch of shows, directed, blah, blah, blah. And it's always a great experience. I did live theater also with other companies in Chicago, directing for them and acting and all that stuff. So I've got a lot of experience doing live theater, specifically storefront theater for small 500 to 100 seat houses, or 550 to 100 seat 500. But live theater is great, and there are always a lot of crazy things that happen in live theater. Because it's live, you have no control over what's going to happen. Things can happen during a performance that no one really wants. You can have weird audiences. Even behind-the-scenes stuff, like when you're doing a show and you're directing one or you're acting in one, crazy things happen in the theater all the time. And I've been telling these stories. I told one story a little bit earlier, and I've been calling it Crazy Live Theater Stories. And I do want to mention this. This is a book by Brad Schreiber. It's called Stop the Show. And it is absolutely hilarious. I ripped through this thing in one sitting. I had the author on my WGN show to talk about it. Great writer. He's written a bunch of really great books. Look at this guy's name and check out his books. Terrific writer. He's written a lot of great books. I've had him on my show several times. I'm going to get him on my podcast too. But anyway, he wrote this great book, which is about crazy stories that happen during live theater and incidents, and anything can happen and often does when you're doing theater. And this is a collection of great stories, hilarious, sometimes like anxiety-filled stories about ridiculous and terrible and sometimes often very funny things that happen while you're doing live theater. And I have a ton of those stories personally. I've been through a bunch of stuff, and I've been sharing some of these. And this is the second chapter in sharing stories. Now, this is not a personal story that I experienced. This is sort of a legendary story, live theater story that took place here in Chicago. The first chapter, which I hope you would go back and look, if you're looking at me on the YouTube channel, go back to my video page and scroll back a little ways and check out Crazy Live Theater Stories number 1. And it involves a play that I did and an actor who had, let's just say, a part of his body that was exposed during the play, and he didn't know it. Anyway, that story is out there. This story is not from a personal experience of mine, but sort of a legendary Chicago story, a theater story. There used to be a great theater called the Apollo Theater. They started as a theater company, and then they had They opened up a theater in the late 80s, early 90s, late 80s, over on Lincoln Avenue, the Apollo Theater. And it became very popular, and that theater itself, that house itself, not only hosted plays, original productions from Apollo Theater and other theater companies, but they also did concerts, one-man shows, and music, and all kinds of performances. And it was a great, beautiful little theater there up on Lincoln Avenue, right by the L tracks, near, I want to say, Wellington. So anyway, it was a great place. And that theater housed some hit shows. One of them was this farce called Lend Me a Tenor, which is your classic door-slamming, mistaken identity farce. Ken Ludwig wrote it. It had a very successful run on Broadway. Tons of productions across the country have been put up. It's kind of a classic. It was written, I think, in the mid-'80s. And it's sort of this classic farce. Mistaken identity. Like I said, mistaken identities, doors slamming, that kind of stuff. Well, it opened at the Apollo Theater, and it had an extremely long run. We're talking a few years at the Apollo. Very successful, filled the houses, made the Apollo Theater a lot of money. And it was a production that started out with just sort of like local actors in it. And then, as the case is for shows that have a little money behind them, that are kind of touring shows or whatever, or, the production companies that are maybe local but have some dough, in order to keep a show running, in order to keep it a long-running hit, sometimes you have to go out and you have to get some stars, or you have to get a name, or some talent that will draw people in. Prelude to a Kiss was another one. That show ran forever, and they kept bringing in, different stars, to come in and play the roles, just to boost the box office up a little bit. A show called Hell Cab would bring in a different cab driver, like every couple of years or so, just to freshen it up and to hopefully get some more asses in the seats. So they would bring in some celebrities. So this farce, Lend Me a Tenor, is a play takes place in 1934 at the Cleveland Grand Opera Company, and the general manager of this company is a guy named Mr. Saunders. And he's an older dude, and he's very excited because this incredibly acclaimed, incredible Italian tenor is going to come and sing in his opera. He's going to sing in Verdi's Otello. He's going to come and sing the lead in that. And it's just this acclaimed, world-famous Italian tenor. And the general manager, Saunders, is very excited about it. His daughter is in the company as well, part of the company as well. They have this guy who's an assistant named Max. Secretly, he's a great singer and an amazing tenor, and he kind of, loves Saunders' daughter from afar. And there's romance and blah blah blah, and lots of mistaken identities and door slamming farce stuff. And so what happens is that this Italian tenor shows up. He shows up late. So the general manager, the character of Saunders, the older guy who runs the company, is losing his mind. He's going crazy, and then the tenor finally shows up on the night of the performance. And gets shit-faced on wine, takes a bunch of tranquilizers, and for all intents and purposes is pretty much dead. So they have to do something about this. They have to put in a replacement without the audience knowing that he is not that famous Italian tenor. And then, wackiness ensues. There's romance, there's farce, there's sight gags, and all kinds of people falling and slipping, and double entendres with the dialogue. There's even blackface in it because they're doing Othello, the opera. So there's even blackface in it to disguise the fact that this Max kid is really not the Italian tenor. So you get the idea. And so in order for a farce to work, the timing has to be impeccable. If you're doing a fast-paced farce, I've directed a bunch of them, and timing is the most important element. Entrances and exits from stage left to stage right, people walking in, dialogue has to overlap, or sometimes the dialogue has to be perfect. If you do slamming doors or entrances, boom, they have to be, it has to work. Have you ever seen a play called Noises Off? One of the classic door slamming farces of all time. One mix-up, one mess-up on a door slam, one mess-up on an entrance, or you miss a cue line, and it fucks up a whole bunch of jokes that follow it. So it has to work like a well-oiled machine. A farce has to boom, boom, boom. You got to get your lines. You got to make your entrance. You got to do your thing. You got to get your prop. You got to do your pratfall at the same time. It's very important that it moves like a well-oiled machine. Timing is of the essence. It's the most important thing when you are performing a farce and when you are directing a farce. You have to make sure that all the elements fall together. Time, time, bang, bang, bang. Very important. Now, in order for this show to run a long time, this farce, Lend Me a Tenor at the Apollo in the early 90s, it ran for a while and the houses started to dwindle, so they would start bringing in some talent otherwise, like some names. So they brought in John Astin, fantastic actor. Obviously, you know him from The Addams Family, and he was married to Patty Duke. Terrific, well-known actor. And I've seen him on stage. He's a great stage actor. I saw him in a one-man show where he played Edgar Allan Poe. Fucking amazing. Amazing. He was so good as Poe. Poe's my favorite writer. He's one of my heroes. And it was really, I saw it twice. And John Astin did this one-man show as Poe. He was fucking amazing. Anyway, they brought John Astin in to play the role of Saunders, the GM of the company. Houses picked up. The box office, went really wild. John Astin, big name. He was terrific in the show. Knew how to do farce. Knew the timing. Professional. Walked in. Knew his lines. Where to stand. What to say. A total pro. And he was terrific in the part. I saw it. He was terrific in the part of Saunders. And that part, ran for months. They had John Astin under contract for months. And the box office was big. John Astin left, so they brought in Jamie Farr. Jamie Farr comes in, Jamie Farr, Klinger from MASH, and so many other things. Again, another pro. This guy has been on stage a bunch of times. One of the nicest guys in the world that you can imagine. I hear only great things about him. I've never met him. But my good friend Rich Coase, who's the first guest on my podcast, has worked with Jamie Farr many times and tells great stories. And he came in to play the role of Saunders after John Astin left. To bring up the box office. And again, a pro. He knows how to do a farce. He comes in, timing, bang, bang, bang. He was off book. He knew his lines. He knew what to do. Pro. Box office went through the roof again. Jamie Farr, very successful in the run of Lend Me a Tenor. So, as, will happen, they only had Jamie Farr for a certain amount of time under a contract. The box office went down a little bit. So in order to keep the show running, they brought in one more guy to play Saunders, the GM of the Cleveland Opera Company, and that was the legendary Mickey Rooney. So they bring in Mickey Rooney. Now, suffice it to say, this is one of the biggest names you could possibly get. Not only a legend in theater and in vaudeville and on stage, child actor, television. Let's not even talk about the tons of movies that he made and all. I mean, the guy's a legend. Mickey Rooney is a legend. So you would think this guy would be perfect. He knows comedy. He did Sugar Babies. He did farce. He knows comedy, movies, theater, everything. So you would think that this guy would be the perfect person to come in, not only kick ass in the role of the guy who runs the opera company, do very well at farce because he's got that experience. The guy was acting for 60 years by the time he came in to do this. You would think that he'd be the perfect choice. And he comes in, and I went on opening night to see Mickey Rooney take over the role that was originated by the original actor and then taken over by John Astin and taken over by Jamie Farr, and now he comes in to play the role of the GM of the opera company. And I went on opening night, and it was one of the fucking most ridiculous things I've ever seen. One of the most stunning theatrical experiences I've ever had, and I don't mean that in a good way. Now, you have to understand that by the time Mickey Rooney came in to take over this role, the other actors who were playing the supporting roles and the female lead, the male lead, the ingenue, the hero, they had all been doing this show for probably 2 to 3, at least 3 years at this point. So all of the other actors, the crew, the director, the stage managers, the supporting cast, the extras, they had all been doing this show for over 3 years, and it was by rote at this point. When you do a show that long, and I've done shows for 2-3 years, it's just a second nature at this point. You know every line, you know where you're supposed to be, you know where you're supposed to stand. And it literally becomes like, not literally, but it really becomes a well-oiled machine. And every single person, you get to know them. You become a family. When you do a show that long, you become a family. The cast, the crew, director, everybody bonds over this experience. You want to put on the best possible show. And another hard thing about being in a show for like 2 to 3 years is you want to make it fresh because you're fucking tired of it. When you walk out on stage for the 900th performance of a show, it is your job to make it fresh and new for the audience. The audience isn't seeing it for the 800th time. You might be bored with it. You might walk out and go, God damn it, I got to say this line again. I got to do this joke again. Jesus. But you know what? The audience that just paid, they don't care about that. They're seeing it for the first time. They're fresh to it. You might be bored as hell performing it, and sometimes that's hard to walk out on stage and do a play that you've done 900 times and keep it fresh and keep it funny. It really, I mean, it's a problem that actors and directors have that doesn't seem like a problem, but it is, to keep it fresh. It's a challenge to do that, to not walk out on stage and coast. And sometimes you do that. You've done that. I'm guilty of it. I've walked out on stage and kind of coasted through shows, especially if the audience isn't responsive, especially if they don't laugh. You know what to say and what to do. You just get through the fucking play and get off the stage. But it is your job as an actor to make it fresh. And so these people have been doing it for 3 years. Mickey Rooney comes in, new to the play, new to this company, never worked with these people before, ever. And so he comes in, and he's like the superstar, okay? All right. He comes in, I go to opening night, and the first entrance of this character, of this Saunders character, is a simple knock at the door. Now, the door opens up, and he comes in, and he's frantic because this Italian tenor has not shown up. So he comes in, he walks around the room, he says his lines, oh my God, this tenor, what are we going to do, blah, blah, blah. And that's what he's supposed to do. And again, he walks in, he's got to hit this mark, he's got to hit that mark, he's got to say this line to cue this joke, knock, boom, door open, oh my God, the tenor's not here. Okay. And I had seen the show. I saw the original production, I saw it with John Astin, and I saw it with Jamie Farr. The night, the first entrance, Mickey Rooney. It's just knocking, just banging the hell out of the door. Door flies open, Mickey Rooney comes out, and immediately walks off the stage, leaving the other actors on the stage, walks off the stage and into the audience. He gets applause right away. As soon as he walks out, you're going to expect that. When John Astin walked out, oh, it's John Astin, they give you applause. Applause dies down, boom. You don't acknowledge it, you just kind of stand there and hold. That's what you're supposed to do. Like if you're a famous actor and you walk out on stage and people applaud you, you hold. You stay in character. You hold. The applause die down, in character, get back right in and do the play. Rooney gets applause, walks out into the audience. I'm not fucking kidding. Off the stage, leaving the actors in character on stage. Walks off the stage, walks up, starts shaking hands. How you doing? How are you? Nice to see you. I'm Mickey Rooney. I've been married 8 times. Unbelievable. Hey, we're going to have a good time here. Hey, nice to see you. Nice hat. Where'd you get that hat? That's a hell of a... Oh, look at you. You brought your purse. Oh, is that your husband? Did he pay for tonight? I hope you get some. I'm not kidding. Like, making sex... Oh, look at you. Wow, you've got some breasts. And this is Mickey Rooney breaking character in the house, in the theater, walking up and down... like sitting down on a step going, whoo, I'm a little tired and I just walked out. Whoa, ho, ho, what do you think of that? Boy, I've been married 8 times. Ho, 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 I got to do this show because I have to pay my wife alimony. La, la, la. He's doing shit like that. And he's saying stuff like, these kids are unbelievable. Wait till you see these kids act. Off stage with the audience going, wait till you see these kids act. Okay, I'll talk to you later. I got to go do this thing. Turns around and walks back out on stage with the actors. Who are now stranded, like what the fuck just happened, and they looked mortified. You're not supposed to walk off stage, and so he comes back in, and now the actors are trying to get back into the rhythm of this finely tuned farce. Now that this asshole has walked off stage, broke character, started doing shtick, belittled the production, all that shit, and now we're expected to jump right back into it, and so. They're like, all right, and then they pick up. And now, because these actors have been doing this show for such a long time, it was up to them to pick up the slack, because they knew it by heart. So they they try to get the production back into where, you know, it should be going. His first entrance in the show, I think it was 10 minutes in, 10, 12 minutes in, 15, something like that. And so the rhythm of the show is already established. He fucking blows it by opening up the door, boom, walks off stage. Hey, how's it going? Nice breasts. Ha ha. Okay, comes back in. So now they have to get back into the play. So they start to get back into the play, and Rooney clearly didn't know his lines, knew some of them, knew maybe chunks of them here and there. And I'm watching this thing, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. I seriously can't believe what I'm seeing. So they're trying to get the play back on, you know, the established actors are trying to get the play back in line. And he would hit his lines here and there. Rooney would hit his lines here. Luckily, it's not the lead. He's not one of the two leads in the show. It's a juicy supporting performance, mostly. So he's out there, he's saying his lines, he's doing his thing, trying, and they're like getting him back because he's derailing every 5 seconds. So they're trying to get him back in, the other actors, and you know, he's still like doing takes to the audience. Like if somebody does a sight gag and it goes well, he looks at the audience and goes, "Whoa, look at that!" You know, and breaking character, breaking the fourth wall and saying, "Hey, look, that was funny, wasn't it?" You know, doing shit like that. And he's supposed to be this very concerned, you know, 1930s leader of an opera company, and he's breaking character and going, "Look at that chick just fell down." Wha! And he's doing shit like that while the other actors are in character desperately trying to make this fucking play work. So this goes on through the whole play. At one point he walks out, he's unbuttoned his shirt, he's untucked, his belly's hanging out, he's untucked his shirt, and his pants are on, his zipper's open. His pant leg is pulled up at one point. He's walking around like he's drunk, and they're gonna carry him. And at one point he like put his leg on an ottoman and went, "Oh my God, what happened to my leg?" And he's doing this shit. He keeps breaking, looking to the audience. It's very clear that every other person on that stage, every other actor on that stage, had to pick up his cues and had to get, you know, they had to move the plot along because he was fucking up and doing shtick and falling down and belly hanging out, you know, and so this goes on the entire performance. I'd never seen anything like it. They get through the show, you know, the place goes nuts because it's Mickey Rooney. The play itself, Ken Ludwig, you know, I don't know if he's living or dead, but he probably died. If he saw that performance, he would have died because it wasn't his play. It was a bunch of people on stage desperately trying to do this play, and an old vaudevillian jagoff asshole fucking it up for everybody else by doing his own shtick, acting drunk, falling down, knocking stuff over. So I was stunned. I was fucking stunned. I'm watching this like... Now, granted, it was very entertaining. Okay, I'm not going to say it wasn't. It was very entertaining, and I went back to see it a second time. And a third time, actually. So I went back, and we talked about this on the radio with Roy Leonard. Roy saw it and was just like, "What?" We couldn't believe that he would do this, but he's Mickey Rooney, and he thinks he can do whatever the fuck he wants. And so, I know somebody who worked on that production. I know somebody who worked, you know, as a stagehand or a second stage manager, assistant stage manager on the show, and tells me this story. And so she worked on the show for a while, and this is her story. This had gone on now by the way, the houses, and I will say this, the houses were huge. Like the box office went up. When Rooney came in, you know, I guess people didn't give a shit about the play, you know, and actually seeing what the play was supposed to be, this like really beautiful, well-oiled farce that's supposed to work, you know, joke by joke by joke. I guess they just wanted to see Mickey Rooney come in, not care about the play, not care about the people on stage, and just fuck around and act like an asshole and have his pants down and fall all over the place and walk out on the stage and, you know, you're not even do that. And meanwhile, the other actors are just on stage seething. You could see it. They're on stage like having to put up with this shit night after night after night. They're there being professionals, doing their job, playing their characters, doing what they need to do in order to make the play work. And this old asshole runs out on stage, runs out like a jagoff, fucks up the play, and doesn't care about them at all. No chemistry, nothing. Not working for them, not setting up their jokes, nothing. And so these actors are getting pissed, and this is rightly so. But people are coming to see it. So anyway, So obviously, since people are coming to see it and the box office is good, why change it? But the actors had enough. I don't know how long, maybe a month and a half into this part of the run with Mickey Rooney as the lead. The actors were like, fuck this. I'm tired of doing it. They were getting paid, obviously. You don't get paid a lot, but they were getting paid. And so they said, look, we've got to say something. Something has to be done. We have to change this. Because it's a different show every night. They're trying desperately to make this show work. And they have to change every night in order to make it work. So they said, I guess they called a meeting and they were like, look, just give him the script. Give him the script and have him read it and have him at least know more of his lines. Or at least the important lines that set up jokes or the important lines that actually move the plot along. Let him at least know those. Please. And, rumor has it that he got the script and he read it on the plane on the way to Chicago. That's the other rumor, is that they gave him the script after he signed the contract, I guess after he got the first check. When he knew he was going to get paid, he's like, oh, I may as well look at this fucking script. Ugh. And he looked at the script on the plane, and that was kind of it. He'd show up to a couple of rehearsals, and he'd Mickey Rooney. Blocking? I don't need to know my blocking. I don't need to know where I have to stand. Rehearsals? I only need one. I'm Mickey Rooney, goddammit. So I got nominated for the Black Stallion. Fuck you. So anyway, so they have this meeting, and so they my friend, the person I know, was, I guess, drew the short straw and had to go to Mickey Rooney's dressing room, and they gave him a script. They gave her a script, and the director and other people went through the script, and they highlighted what they wanted him to learn. They put tabs on the pages and said, please look at this part of the script, and they want him to look at these sections of the script. Not even the whole script. You could fuck around all over the place, but we really need you to get these sections right, because it's integral to the play and the plot and the jokes. Please, at least, learn these parts, you old asshole. So, my friend, the assistant stage manager, woman, goes to Mickey Rooney's dressing room and knocks on the door. What? Mickey Rooney. And by the way, I forgot to tell you this. His behavior during the entire process off stage was assholish, like beyond assholish. Just like, you got to treat me like a god. You're lucky to have me here. I'm saving this production single-handedly, and if it wasn't for me, you guys would be washing cars. He's that kind of jag-off, okay? Like a total jag-off. And, doesn't care about the actors, but didn't even know their names for the most part. Like, didn't even bother to learn their names, or, God forbid, if he didn't know the actors' names, he clearly didn't know who the crew was. He didn't give a fuck about the crew. So he was being an old, privileged dick, and granted, he's Mickey Rooney, like 70 years in the business, he can act that way because he's a fucking legend. I'm not arguing that. But if you're going to show up and do a job, do the goddamn job. So anyway, he's acting like a dick, blah, blah, blah. So that's why, nobody would go to him with any kind of notes. Like, the director couldn't give him notes. You can't give notes to Mickey Rooney. Well, who do you think you are? I was acting when you were sperm. That kind of shit. So, because it got to the point where they just were like, I think at one point the actors were going to walk out. They were like, fuck this, we have to, So my friend has this script, knocks, and very nervous because, again, Mickey Rooney's been acting like an old grizzled prick, which is what he was. And so she knocks on the door. What? Can I come in for a second, Mr. Rooney? Opens the door. And Mickey Rooney probably didn't even know who the fuck she was, Even if she was wearing a headset, you know what I mean? Like, clearly I'm a stage manager, I'm part of the crew. Walks in and has the script. It says, Mr. Rooney, what? And this is, I don't know if it was before. It was before a show, I think. Maybe a couple hours before a show. And so she comes in, she brings the script, and she puts it, like, on his dressing table. And she's like, this is a copy of the script. And he's like, and he just doesn't say anything. He just kind of looks at her. And she's like, you've been kind of going off book and doing your own thing, which is great, and the audiences love it, and we love it. But we really need you to learn some of these other lines because they're integral for the play to work. And the actors and the director would really love you to take a look at this script. We've highlighted it for you, and just look at the stuff that we've marked. Just take a look at that. If you can familiarize yourself with that and try to get that in to tonight's performance and the performances from now on. And Rooney just looked at her, didn't say a fucking word, didn't say anything. Script is on his dressing table. And he looked at her, and you could see, and she said you could see the contempt in his eyes. Like, if looks could kill, she'd have been dead. Like Mickey Rooney, like, in his mind, he's like, how fucking dare you, you 20-something twat, you know, I'm 70 years older than you. I've been doing this since before your parents were even born. You know, in his mind, he's thinking this. Doesn't say anything, just looks at her. And she's like, Mr. Rooney? And he just kind of looks at her. So is that okay? Would you please take a look at the script? And he stands up. He unbuckles his pants. And he takes out his dick. He leans over and he puts his dick on the script. My friend is just standing there. Woman, standing there, looking at him. Mickey Rooney, with his dick on the script, says, this is what I think of your script. Put his dick back in his pants, zipped up his pants, and said, you can leave now. And she walked out. Needless to say, he acted even more crazy on stage. And so, the actors didn't walk out. It was a paycheck. So the houses started to dwindle a little bit. So I went on closing night to see it, just to see what Mickey Rooney would do. And it was even crazier than the first night. At one point, his pants were off. He walked out on stage, no pants. Walked out into the audience, hey, knocking stuff over. He knocked a drink out of somebody's hand in the audience at one point, I think, if I remember correctly. And you could tell, at this point, the actors on stage were done. They weren't feeding him anything. They were actually upstaging him. They were taking his lines. On the closing night that I saw, the closing night of the show, and it was the closing night of the entire production. Like, Mickey Rooney closed that show. It wasn't going to go on any longer. So, but during the closing night, they were stepping on his lines. They were taking his laughs. You could tell he was pissed. You could tell. There were times when he would stop and look at them. And it got to the point where they were just doing that now every night. They're like, fuck you, this show is ending. Okay, you want to steal focus? We're going to steal focus. And they would come in, they'd take his lines. They would comment about his performance. They would look at the audience and go, look at this old guy thinking he's funny. They would say stuff like, one actor would say stuff like, hey, this isn't Sugar Daddy's, this isn't Sugar Baby's baby. Say shit like that. So they gave it back to him. And I saw it on closing night, and it was wonderful just to see the actors finally on stage during the performance take away his thunder and pull the rug out from underneath this asshole. So, and that's one of the craziest live stories I've ever heard. One of the live theater stories I've ever heard is, and if you know anybody who's been in Chicago theater and in the early 90s, the stories about Mickey Rooney's behavior, this is just, this is the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure that there are other people who have worked on the show, people within the company that have even worse stories, that have even crazier stories. Probably performances that I didn't see. I only saw it 3 times with Mickey Rooney in it. I'm sure that of the, dozens and dozens and dozens of performances, crazier shit happened on stage. But it's one of the more legendary local Chicago stories. Yeah. So Mickey Rooney. Yeah, Mickey Rooney in Lend Me a Tenor. Legendary Chicago theater story. So anyway, yeah, that was it. I just couldn't believe it. Walked off the stage. Hey, how's it going? Hey, nice boobs. Oh, I've been married 8 times. So anyway, it was astonishing to watch. So. All right, anyway, so that's another crazy live theater story. I've got a million of them. That one I was not a part of, but personally. But it's a legend. It's a story. So anyway, live theater is fun. Thanks. Enjoy the veal, and have a good day.